People don't usually ask, though. They just assume, oh, that this place is never going to give me a raise, or they're never going to value what I bring to the table. We hired you for a reason. We hired you because we consistently saw that you have this type of curiosity and these skills, and we want you here. We want this energy here. We're going to do everything we possibly can to grow and develop you.
Claude Silver, welcome to the Oxford Talks podcast. How are you
Thank
doing
you.
today?
Oh, I'm great. And it's wonderful to see you again. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you so much. Thank you so much. So you have been Chief Heart Officer of a very, very famous company, at least in the world of marketing for the people who know,
Yes.
for VaynerMedia. And I think one of the fascinating things I came across, and you have mentioned it quite frequently, that one of the main kind of a tenets of the job is to scale the Gary V's empathy. And for the folks who don't know Gary V, Gary Vaynerchuk is the founder and CEO of VaynerMedia. It's a 2,000 plus, I think, members team. They're based in New York and offices all over the world. And Claude here is the wonderful Chief Hearts Officer, which is a remarkable title.
Thank you.
How are you scaling empathy?
Yes. Well, I tell you what, the minute he and I came up with this role, which was 10 and a half years ago now, I asked him at that meeting, how do we know if I'm successful? And he said, you will touch every single human being and infuse the agency with empathy. So we were about 300 then, 2,000 now. So I had to figure out how to scale myself very quickly. I'm scaling Gary, which is the scaling the unscalable. Then I'm scaling empathy, which is also scaling the unscalable. So I had to do a couple things. One, I had to understand what my actual definition of empathy is and what it's not. Then I needed to find people who were just like me, just like Gary, just have hearts to help, who really want to be helpful and are service oriented. And I call those people culture champions. They're all over the world. And I know I can call upon one of them. If someone in Singapore is having a terrible day, they don't need to go to HR, but I can easily Slack someone and say, do you mind taking John for a walk? Or do you mind taking Billy for a walk? I hear his dad's not well. Those types of things. So I really rely on the culture champions, which is amazing because they're everywhere. So we get it into the water that way. We've got a wonderful team called the People and Experience team, not HR. I did it very differently. They are HR professionals, but we call it People and Experience because that's what we're doing. And they, over the HR business partners, oversee groups of individuals, and they all get trained in EQ and emotional fluency throughout the year, psychological safety throughout the year, how to give feedback throughout the year. So that's really how I'm scaling. I lean a lot on our senior leadership, which is lovely. I wasn't always able to lean on them, but I think we've got a really stellar group now that is accountable. They're adults. They know that they need to be thinking about how they're showing up every day. And so that's really it. I mean, just consistent.
I love that. How do you even? I remember listening to you. You mentioned that the VaynerMedia company is across cultures and across countries and and across offices that you don't even have been to those countries and you don't even have interacted with those countries. So
Yeah.
and the cultures. How have you built up that kind of like a camaraderie between the people that you can pick up a call and tell them, okay, go on for a walk? Is it like you call yourself, maybe would you call yourself like a master of human emotions that are just universal?
That's
Or
it.
do you spend time learning, okay, what's happening with that culture, that maybe that is more appropriate for that person to go
Yes.
through?
Yes. I for sure both, but I never want to assume how Thailand, how our office in Bangkok is doing today. I don't want to assume how everyone is feeling up north in Toronto. So I spend a lot of time on Zooms going there. So I finally now have been to Asia. And so I was in Singapore and I met everyone from Southeast Asia came there. Then I went to Sydney, Australia. So I have a lot more travel to do. However, I feel like I understand more. And obviously, going to these cultures, you get to feel it, you get to see it, which is wonderful. And I spend a lot of time I spend a lot of time listening and then adding something, putting something in where it feels acceptable or applicable that will, give them another tool or another way to think about something. So I can be of value and provide something for them. But ultimately, what I'm happy to say is I feel very confident that we are scaling empathy in all of our organizations. It's going to look different than it does in New York because I'm here and Gary's here. And it's going to look different because not all cultures are like American cultures.
Yes.
Big, loud, yeah, So even in London, it's very different.
Yes. It's very subtle and it's very British. And I think I've interacted with a lot of, so my background with TED is that, we worked with a lot of folks in New York, and there's a certain click to New York. There's a certain pace to it that even in London, that you don't get to see people take their time and, all those kind of things. Claude, tell me about your book. I'm very interested to learn
Oh,
about that. I know you have put
thank you.
heart and soul into this. I
Woo,
really want to know about it.
thank you so much. I'm so happy it's out in the world. I'm so happy it's not just in here now. And that is such a relief. Um, the hard work paid off. I'm really happy with it. It's a book. I wanted people to be able to flip to any page and open it and say, oh, okay, cool. I'll take that with me today. Or, oh, that's insightful. I wanted it to be for everyone. And while it is being yourself at work, obviously it's be yourself. Dot, dot, dot. And I framed it in the way of it starts with you. Who are you? You are the CEO of you. What prevents you from showing up at work? Are you aware of that? And so going through a self awareness journey here, yourself, your imposter syndrome, then it takes you into who are you on a team, navigating conflicts, giving one another feedback, collaborating, making sure that you're building your resistance muscles. And then it takes you as a leader shaping culture. So I wanted to take people on a journey because I think leaders can be anyone. They don't have to, leaders are, they're leaders. I wish every organization was flat. That's what I would say first and foremost, but it's not. Um, and within those three parts, I talk about a framework that came up with about 10 years ago that I can now articulate very well, which is I call them the three E's: emotional optimism, emotional bravery, and emotional efficiency. I absolutely think we're all on some level working within this framework, which I'll explain. But we don't know what we're doing. So, for example, emotional optimism for myself, for an individual. Say I receive a negative feedback review from my boss. I'm bummed out. I'm sad. I'm upset. How dare that person give me feedback? All of that stuff. So I want to acknowledge that my emotions are high and I'm feeling really frustrated and angry. That doesn't mean I'm an angry person. It means that the situation upset me. And it's my uh, birthright, quite frankly, to feel anything I want to feel. However, the emotional optimism part is that tomorrow is a different day. You get to start again. The emotional optimism is there is possibility everywhere. It doesn't mean that you got a terrible review and the door is shut. I need you to see it as there's possibility. What do you need to do to have that better review next time, right? So we have agency to make things bad for ourselves or good for ourselves. I would like everyone to be in a state of, okay, I feel terrible right now, But tomorrow I'm going to go back to my boss and say, what is it that I need to do? Right? So then the bravery kicks in, which is knowing that I'm shaking still, but I am going to go to my boss tomorrow and I'm going to take action. And the action is, hi, boss. That was a hard conversation yesterday. I disagreed with two of the points, and I'm wondering if we can sit down for a half an hour and we can walk through those again. What is the boss going to say? Yes. But I'm the one that has to put it out there. And I have to be brave enough, even though I might be shaking,
Yeah.
to put it out there. The more I do these things, the more I learn for myself not to dwell in the emotion, the faster I'm going to get.
How
Faster
does
I get.
one,
Yeah.
Claude, how does one summon up that courage, seriously, that exactly at that point that you are shaking? And again, it's just incredibly hard to know to put yourself out there. I
Yeah.
think I did the VaynerMedia and Gary himself, and I think the team does an incredible job of like portraying that kind of sort of world where Gary's super open, and he talks about all sorts of things, that what his ambitions are, his family, all those kind of things. But in a situation where at the end of the month I have rents due, I have this thing, my kids in needs a help with education or whatever, shall I just put my head down and cower and just stay under the radar because I'm not wanna the authorities that be, I don't want to challenge them and lose my job, versus, and spend 10, 15, 25 years of life like that, versus, what, this is not working out for me.
Yeah.
How does one that jump from that
Yeah.
bridge to the other side?
You have to have self awareness, the awareness of who you are. And that's a journey you and I and everyone will be on forever, right? Until our last breath. But the book starts out teaching you how to become more self aware and ways to do that are very easy. What are your values? Write down your values, 5 or 10 values. If you don't know what values are, go to the internet. They'll give you a list of 300. What are the things that drive you? Then the other question is to ask people why they want to work with you. What do they like about working with you? You're strategic, you're consistent, you're a great communicator, you're warm, whatever that is. Try to understand why people find value in you. And then I need you to look at both of those lists and see, here are my values. This is what people think about me. What do I think about myself and why? And when you're thinking about yourself and why, you're thinking, you know what? When someone interrupts me in a conversation, I get really mad. Why? Because that used to happen to me at the dinner table when I was a child. Okay. So you start to get to know your triggers. You start to get to know the things that make you happy. When you do all of that, you start to also become more confident. You know what is going to upset you for the most part, and you know what is going to just like help you like jam and thrive. What I'm asking people to do is become more comfortable with yourself so that you can take those risks. You can be brave and say, you know what? I know I bring value. I know that I am not a great presenter when it comes to public speaking, and I need to work on that. But I do know that I bring a lot of value. I am excellent when it comes to building client relationships, so forth and so on. So that you need to know in yourself what the best things are about yourself in the workplace. Just like you just asked your friends, what are the best things about me? And then you take that risk. Now, if you are in an organization where you're like, there is no way I'm speaking up, well, then you need to know that. And you need to be okay that you're in a organization where you are going to silence yourself. And what is that going to do to who you are outside of work?
Claude, I was going to ask you, amazing answer. I absolutely love it. And it's so true on so many different levels as well. Why do you feel like, and why you felt that this is the right time to talk about this, and you felt the need to, why this is the best time for you to write the book?
Well, I've been in the working world for a very long time, and I have watched people suffer in silence for too long.
Mm.
I have literally watched people shrink, lose confidence, become quiet, become complacent, or become cynical. My belief, and I know it to be true in this place, is that we can find solutions to almost everything. You had an argument with your boss, we can work that out together. You want to move to a different country, let's work that out together. You really want to raise, let's talk about what the probability is of that. There's so many things we can communicate about and with you. People don't usually ask though. They just assume, oh, that this place is never going to give me a raise, or they're never going to value what I bring to the table. We hired you for a reason. We hired you because we consistently saw that you have this type of curiosity and these skills, and we want you here. We want this energy here. We're going to do everything we possibly can to grow and develop you. And you need to put your best foot forward too. We can't grow and develop you if you have a wall up and you don't let us in. So the reason the now is because of the 5 generations in the workforce who are all extremely different. Gen Z, Gen Z, as you would say, and Gen Alpha will not stand for the same things Gen X, me, was okay with. Not at all. They want to tell you what's going on in their life. They want to tell you what they're dealing with at home, and they want to do purposeful work, and they want balance. Balance, I say in quotations because I don't know what balance is different for every single person. But what I can say is they are demanding to be treated differently. We have handed them a culture of burnout. They're not okay with that. Now is the time for people to understand that it is okay to bring yourself into the workspace. I'm not asking for people to jump in and just throw chaos all over the floor. No, no one wants your chaos. No one wants to clean up your mess. You don't even want to clean up your mess. But what I am asking for is through getting to know yourself and wanting to thrive and be successful, you need to put some skin in the game. Everyone, whether or not you're a C-suite leader, whether or not you're a VP, whether or not you're an entry level, we need to get to know one another outside of being robotic at work, because we're collaborating, because we want to create safety, because we want to create a place where people feel like they belong and they want to stay here 12 years. You know, we've been around for 16 and a half years. We still have employee number 1 and 2. I've been here 11 and a half years. The majority of people have been here for about 6 to 12 years. So, gosh, that says something,
In
right?
modern times, yes, really much, because the culture very much, especially with big tech, is you go in there, get yourself burnt out in 2-3 years, get, I don't know, like a million or two, come out
Yeah.
and do your own thing. So that really is remarkable. Claude, how do you kind of differentiate? I know, and I think a lot of people know the historical perspective of like the difference between an HR versus chief heart officer. I think you're told that story multiple times. I want to ask you the kind of the future of that role that you are in, because
Mhm.
I think different places, I think post COVID world, I think we're seeing a lot of it has come back. Events are coming back, and I think a lot of content from Gary recently he's been about that. Someone's going to pay you to just go on a walk with someone. Those things are experiential things are happening. How do you see your role evolving with humans? Because our interaction with this dramatic shift of technology with AI has changed quite a lot. There's a huge movement of come back to office, and there's a huge movement of I can just live in the VR and make my money there. Where do you see yourself? Like, what challenge you see in front of you?
The challenge will continue to be, how do you find synergy within high tech, hustle, speed, demand, and humanity? That will be the challenge. And so we are going to need people in our workplaces that speak human, that have emotional fluency, that know how to separate themselves from someone else and draw boundaries, that can set the emotional framework for the company, meaning, what is it to be a Vayner citizen?
Mm.
This is what it is to be a Vayner citizen. over and over and over, and getting that in the water. And I think we're moving. My job is to be a coach, 1,000%, a coach, a confident, um, a confidant, and a friend, I would say. That's
Yeah.
my role here. We need coaches in our workplaces today. We need help when it comes to finding ways to connect with one another, because we are all so put our boundaries up. Don't come near me. You don't know me. I don't want you in my space. And yet we spend so much time together. So I need to be in your space and you need to be in my space. So how are we going to work that out as humans? How are we going to be kinder to one another and show humility?
Yeah. Tell me more about Vayner citizenship. What you mentioned that. What does that mean? What culture have you built up there?
Well, it's without a doubt, it's a culture of camaraderie, friendship, warmth, creativity, collaboration. And now we're moving into both being a culture of feedback and accountability. So you've got all of the warm stuff, very friendly. People find it to be, very encouraging to be at this company. People are always raising their hand to help you, all of that stuff. So that works. Now we need to move much more into this culture of accountability, meaning instead of me pointing fingers at you and saying, "What did you do? Oh, you did something wrong." Look at myself first. What did I do?
Mm.
Or what didn't I do to cause that chaos or that swirl? Because of course I added something to it. I mean, I'm not a perfect human. So we want people to be able to look at themselves first and go, "Okay, yeah, I did have a point. I had a part to play in that, and I apologize for that." And then to work through whatever the difficulty is, whatever the problem you're trying to solve is. So that's what I would say in terms of being a Vayner citizenship. We call our culture internally the honey empire. Honey.
Okay.
Honey
Honey.
is being the bigger person in every situation. Honey is really, knowing how to extend grace and knowing how to extend generosity to another person. The empire obviously is the business, is our success, is where we're driving towards day in and day out. And so that really is what encompasses a Vayner citizen. It's a mixture of communication, growth mindset, accountability, leadership, and then the hard skills that you bring to the job every day, whether or
Yeah.
not you're coding, whether or not you're designing. So we've got foundational citizenship and we've got functional, and
Yeah.
those two go together.
I love that. And you famously said, and I'm coming to that. You mentioned coding and all of these, and technically we call them, these are hard skills.
Yep.
And you
Yep. Yep.
famously said that empathy and leadership and all that, communication, and these are labeled as soft skills, but there's nothing soft about them.
Oh,
Uh, do
they're
you want to
so
elaborate a bit more? How do you see these skills?
yeah. I mean, they're so incredibly difficult to master unless you spend time working on them. You cannot buy them off of a shelf. You cannot just get them at the grocery store. You have to have a desire to want to be a human and understand your emotions and other people's behavior, right? And that some people gradually fall into that. Some people don't want to, I don't want to know about you, right?
Mm.
And they close themselves off for a variety of reasons. However, empathy, let's take the word empathy. Empathy, some people say it's me stepping into your shoes. I could never in 1,000 years step into your shoes and begin to understand what your lived experience is. I can't. You and I probably have polar opposite lived experience. However, what I can do is raise my hand and say, Waleed, I'm going to walk beside you. I'm going to be here with you. I got you and you got this, but I just want you to know I believe in you. That is how I translate empathy. That doesn't come easy for everyone.
I love
Even
that.
though the output of empathy is kindness and compassion, and we learn that as children, it doesn't come naturally for some people. They don't want to be kind and compassionate. They would rather see the world cynically for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So there's an unlearning and a learning that happens. And I think of them as skills that we really all need to master in this lifetime. We're
I absolutely
human.
love that. I think it's one of the most remarkable conversations in a way that there's a lot that we already know. I mean, Gary does a very good job of telling the world like what the VaynerMedia is, and I felt it when you mentioned that, putting myself in the shoe of someone who works with you, that you holding their hand and being saying that to me, to them,
Yeah.
that you are there for them. And I think that psychological safety net, we spend most of our living life at work.
Yeah.
So the relationship that we share with our colleagues, with our juniors, with our bosses, they're one of the most important. One of the things I think is the case that you cannot give an someone else that kind of a safety net if you are scared of your own job.
That's right.
I want to talk about how the leadership, I think AJ, him and Gary started the whole thing together. You came, how does still the modern day, today's C suite of VaynerMedia, including Gary, how are you creating safety nets for each other, that giving each other the kind of energy that gets translated into the whole company?
Yeah. The number one way is we trust. We trust each other. And we did not have to earn each other's trust. And that's something that we do here, and it's in the water already, which is by the time you start work here, you've interviewed with us for 3 months, most likely. You've met a lot of people. We've consistently gotten to see you show up as you. When you start at the job, why in the world would we make you have to prove something to us?
Mm.
We've hired you. We see you, we like you, we need you. Why aren't I going to trust you? So we trust first. That is how we scale this culture in many, many ways. There is no reason for me to doubt your capabilities when we've already met twice and you've met my partners and the other hiring managers. So when you get that in the water stream and you get kindness in the water stream, we are a kind culture. Right there, that's shorthand.
Mm.
That is shorthand for having deep discussions with Gary or AJ or any other leader. We already trust one another. You know that I only want you to succeed here. And I believe you only want me to succeed here. So that's a great, great feeling. All right, well, then let's act on that. Let's do something with that. And I said a very long time ago, which is still quoted, people need people that listen and then do something. The do something is the proactivity. The do something is the momentum. The do something is you can walk in our building today and you can feel like we are going somewhere. There's movement, there's motion. And that is because of the emotional efficiency that we have built up through trust and kindness and warmth. And let's go. We don't have to hang on drama here. That's what
I
it's like.
just love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
think so many. That's why I said it's one of the remarkable conversations for me, because I get to see, I'm hearing the kind of in-person insight to the kind of the picture that I already have of what the
Yes.
company is. And I think a lot of it has to do with the content that the company puts out. I want to switch gears and talk about work itself, the creativity part of it.
Yes.
Um, Claude, how are you helping someone who is within the company? They're worried about AI. We thought it was, creativity was the last thing it was going to touch. Turns out it was the first thing it touched. We thought the job of creators, illustrators, coders, and all of that, I mean, it's right in the front of it in their faces. People are just naturally feeling. It's not that I'm going to switch from VaynerMedia to another company, and there'll be, maybe you work for a super old bank and they'll be using like a very old coding language. You'll be safe. But it's the storm. It's everywhere. People are feeling a bit of, and I think a lot of surveys are. And I was looking at some Google Trends as well. I think humans are very resilient. They are looking at, I think they've accepted that it is here. It is a force of life. How are we going to work? How can I get along with AI to do my job? As chief heart officer, how are you navigating those conversations when people are walking up to you?
Yeah. So, to answer that at a macro, there is fear everywhere. We
Mm,
are seeing layoffs, massive layoffs happen, whether or not it's Amazon, whether or not it's other holding company agencies, whether or not it's banking. There's fear in the system. If you're in this country, you're dealing with the administration and the political climate here, just like you do in your country as well. So, the first thing we need to do is acknowledge the fear, acknowledge the fact that things are moving faster than ever because we have this.
mm,
And this means we're always on. And when you're always on, you don't have a moment to get outside and breathe and walk around because you're always on. There's this false sense of urgency that we have created, human beings have created. So, first and foremost, acknowledging that there's fear out there. We get it, just like I did with you. Whether or not you're in this country, another country, wars, all this stuff has happened to all of us. Then be very transparent about how we as a company are going to go about attacking AI. How are we going to attack and embrace it? And when I mean embrace it like we need it, it's here. It's a phenomenal tool. It's a phenomenal tool for the creatives, for strategists, for anyone to become more efficient, to ideate more, whatnot. And you need to really start becoming an expert in it
mm.
because the people that we will need around us are going to be creatives and are going to be strategists, but they are going to know, they need to know how to master AI. Otherwise, that's that's where the disconnect's going to happen.
I was going to ask you, what is your interaction with AI? Are you, I imagine a person, this is not something, I know you are a person who is that kind of a, you, that carries a great deal of empathy towards other humans. And there's a lot of it that we don't, as in for your, I don't think so. Your juices get recharged talking to GPT every day. It's probably not going to be that. How? Because it's just naturally it's the case that we learn from it. It's a great tool and all of that, but I think at the macro scale that you have to work across cultures and everything, talking to people more is way better for you as in as a get to know tool versus reading the books and
Yeah,
applying that strategy. It doesn't work, like it's not an academic kind of an environment.
correct.
What is your personal kind of interaction with GPTs and AI, or are you using tools that you sometimes are not sure of? Because there's a we have seen this phenomena that people are going to their psychologists and telling them, or they come to them after they've spent 6 months talking to GPT about their problems.
I
It's
know
crazy.
it's
What do you think
wild.
about that?
It's wild. I do use AI. I find it to be a wonderful friend in many ways to help me sometimes articulate what I'm trying to say. I have had to spend a lot of time with ChatGPT or Gemini so that they understand where I'm coming from, where my heart is, what is important to me. But I definitely use it to just articulate maybe a new thought I have, right? To help me name it. And then I'll go and then I'll go and write about it or blow it out or be able to make a presentation about it. However, you're right. My job is extremely high touch. And I believe the role of a leader has to be extremely high touch. We can't rely on AI to tell us how a person is feeling, really. We can't rely on AI to put their hand on your shoulder and say, I got you, my friend. It's going to be
Yeah.
all right. Those are things that aren't going to happen yet. They'll happen probably. We'll have robots. We'll all have, robots in our house and whatnot, but it's not going to happen today. And you still very much need the human touch, no matter what. No matter that AI is now your therapist, AI is never going to see your body language. AI is really never going to quite understand where you come from, why you have certain triggers, right? They don't know the family you grew up in, what went on in the dining room table. So there's certain things I think AI is very good at, but I think it's surface level when it comes to diagnosing human behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Claude, I want to go outside the Vayner's offices, into broader kind of, let's say, New York and let's say broader America. How do you create a kind of like a defense against what's going on out there in terms of political environment, cost of living, so many sort of events, wars, and all everything is going on. And I think when you're a 5% team, I think it's easier to manage. When you're 10, 100, fairly okay. But at 2,000, 2,500 people, that kind of it's like an inward stream of those thoughts that come into the culture. And is there a active kind of an effort from you to kind of like pick out those weeds that you don't want that to kind of bubble up? Or how do you manage that kind of an external kind of stimulants coming into your culture, hampering the Vayner citizenship?
Well, I have no control over them. That's how
Mm,
I deal with it. There's nothing I can do about what's going on outside of these four walls except do my best to not deny it and do my best to create safety within these walls. That's really the only thing I can do. I want people to know that when they come into the workplace or they turn on their Zoom and their laptop, they're going to be met with kindness. They're going to be met with some kind of warmth rather than the hostility and the fear that might be out there in the world. And we've seen that. Obviously, you've seen a lot of that in London. We see a lot of that here in New York City. The protests, the marches, what's going on that had gone on in the Middle East. It's very, very difficult to maintain an equilibrium, a steady balance of emotion when
yeah.
so much is going on. I mean, we just had dollars taken from people who rely on government money to buy food for their home and their children. It's bonkers. But the thing I can do is to create an environment or co-create an environment here where people are not afraid.
Yeah. Claude, I was gonna say, I think this is my personal perspective. I just want to share with you that
Please.
um, I think, and again, this is a thought that I kid you not, Gary's been a huge influence in kind of my social media career and outside the business world as well. That I love the fact that one time you mentioned that people scold, Gen X or sorry, Gen Z and millennials that they're on their phones all the time. He's like, take a picture from 1915, 20s New York, substation or whatever. People are hooked to their newspapers.
Oh yeah.
How's different than that? So I have an opinion. I don't know how you even calculate that. I have an opinion. I think that things haven't really changed that dramatically. And I have a very funny example to showcase that. It's just because everything is so, we have access to mobile. And as you said, you raise up your mobile, like it just feels everything is hyped up. And the reason I say that is that in London, in UK, we have a conversation popping up quite soon at the end of this month in November that there's going to be new budget out and there's going to be taxes are going to be risen up and all of that. And I saw one of the old kind of a grand tour, the car show video, and they were mentioning that how in 1960s and 70s in UK, Ford executives and if you were working in, let's say, a marketing firm or something similar, executives were given different levels of trims of Ford cars.
Hmm.
Reason being because the taxes were 40%. And I'm like, it hasn't gone 80% today. It's still
No.
the same level, but just
Yeah.
it feels today like, oh my god, my parents were okay, their parents were okay, and I'm the one who's under the gun. I think there's some truth to it, to this whole notion. But where do you see comparison with starting of your career? I mean, of course, you saw the 2008 crisis, and
Yeah.
we've seen the wars at the moment. Does it feel hyped up, or the world has kind of always have been like this?
Well, I look at today's day and age like I looked at when we had dial up internet.
Yeah.
That's what I look at it like. And what I can say is it took us a while to go from dial up to modem to hardwire. What's happening now just happens to be at hyper speed because
Mm.
technology has advanced so much since 1995. So things are advancing faster than we are used to them advancing. That's what I would say. But I will definitely think that the things the boomers said about Gen X are very similar to the things that millennials say about
They're
Gen
on
Z.
their TV all the time.
Yeah, like, right? I mean, they're on their phones all day long. They're on Instagram or TikTok all day long. That's their form of entertainment. And you and I had a TV and we
Yes,
just
I
went,
I remember. Yes,
yeah.
I'm 29. Yes, I remember TV being the. I actually have an interesting question. I know you have a past kind of a career of very heavy into advertising and marketing. There's a kind of a new wave. I want to get your pulse on that. It's slightly deviated from your day-to-day job. It's like this new rise of, we had cable, and cable was like the great thing, and Gary talks about it quite a lot in his world as well. We're seeing this rise of kind of pirate websites making a comeback, and
I
it's
know,
and
I
it's
know.
doing like a whole kind of 180 where subscriptions are like, and it is quite insane that not only have to pay for most of the subscription, not only have to pay the base version, and then have to pay another version for ad free and
Oh
access and
my
all of
gosh.
that. But where do you think that in your lifetime, did you see a consumer sector kind of doing 180 before, and so nothing is kind of again new under the sun, and we're just seeing the repetition of things where is 2000, and then Napster has popped up again.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, there's so many things that are happening now that the things that are being imagined and created are such an answer to a lot of the issues or the habits that we had during my day. So, for example, you can go on Instagram right now, and I don't know about you, but I get served all of these ads for beverages with aptogens in them and lion's mane in them and
Oh yeah.
THC in them and all of this stuff. Don't have a hangover, do this, where I'm not even a big drinker. However, however, it's so funny because back in my day, you could advertise cigarettes, you could advertise beer, alcohol on TV. You can't do that in this country anymore,
Mm.
right? And so, what can you advertise? I tell you what, we advertise too much of is prescription medication, which you don't in the UK.
No, yeah.
When I lived there, I never saw an ad for prescription medication, which then has all of the T's and C's of you might experience shortness of breath, suicidal thoughts, or death. It's like, well, why in the heck would I want to take that? Right? Like their smoking was fine. People smoked on airplanes when I was a little kid. People smoked everywhere. Now, it's nowhere you can smoke. I'm not a smoker either, but what a change that's been. And, as they say, this has become our pack
Yeah.
of cigarettes in a
And it's
big
so
time.
true. And I think there's some, I think that we are really touching some deep thoughts there. And I think at one point, I think it's just secrets and all these kind of things. There's just so much confusion about life out there. At least I see my younger brother. He's 25, and he was born in 2000. I think his generation and afterwards, we the religions of the previous lives, I think they were kind of a taken away. That you don't need to go to church or mosque or synagogues anymore.
Yes.
So that community kind of went away, and uh, I'm not a kind of a socialist, or let's say a person like that at all, but it felt like that you can trust company XYZ to take out weed from your lawn, and you could have been just using the same product for 30 years. Turns out it gave you cancer.
Yeah.
All sorts of examples. And I'm just thinking, where do we keep our trust now that we've been told one thing, oh, eggs are bad for you, and then the next day research comes out, oh, eggs are actually good for you, and it's so many conflicting advice. And I think
So
because
many.
someone like yourself who has a pulse on these things, how would you say that, how do we make a judgment for ourselves?
Well, I think this is where word of mouth is very important. I
Mm.
do think that the media, at least in our country, is set up to scare the daylights out of you. I really do. We make everything into a drama, everything. Whereas you can turn on, Sky or BBC, and the news is not dramatic with all this music and all these, zigzags.
Not yet.
We make it into a telenovela here. We're like, we infuse everyone with fear. And that's something I have to be aware of every single day, that people are experiencing through their own scrolling all kinds of different things. I have no control over what they're looking at. And they could be looking at some things that are very, very scary. Um, they could be looking at things that I don't know about because I might not be of their culture. So I have to just be aware of that. And I do think that's why connection and human connection is that much more important, because we do need one another. We are wired, humans are wired to belong to one another in community. And we need that. And so the communities we're making here in our workplaces are that much more vital, because who knows what's going on when I leave work, right? Who knows
Yeah.
what's going on when you get home and you live with your parents and maybe your dad got laid off today. Like, it's a wild, wild world out there. And yet here we are in it. And so what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with our life? We have still enormous and endless possibility to create what we want out of our worlds, at least in the Western world. This is a country that is founded on entrepreneurship. People are creating companies a dime a dozen, but I don't know who is watching out for the human beings inside of these organizations, like
Mm.
literally. And I am devoted to them, to almost to a point where, I want every single person here to thrive. I want them to stay here and love it as much as I love it here. And I can only do so much to control that.
Claude, what has been your kind of a observation that, do you see culture, especially in New York, is such a hotbed for all these sort of things? Do you see cultural events? Do you see devices? Do you see apps? Them come, as I told you, I Gary, my interaction with his work started when I saw a clip of him saying that musically is the thing to be on, and then it
Yeah.
got acquired by TikTok, and seems like decades ago. But those things are coming into the culture. They are creating these mass behaviors. And I was looking at this study where they're saying that one of the most remarkable thing about TikTok was that there was something that they picked up, that the Chinese kind of like makers of these apps and all of that, they really have this pulse of American consumers are gonna love this product.
Ah,
They have this new thing coming out, Claude, that I don't know, you might have come across them, called like small, like short TV series on TikToks and stuff.
yeah.
So
Yes.
essentially, it's like
Yeah.
60 episodes, and you have to pay, but it's like all 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and you're so hooked to it.
Yeah.
And I was watching some creators talking about it, and they're like, of course it's going to work amazing in America. Consumers are going to love that. So do you see, like, how do you keep like a parallel pulse of what this is happening in the culture, and this is the problem, or this is the possibility is going to create the organization that I'm kind of running? How do you kind of balance these two together?
Yeah. So this is the first, I have two answers. The first answer is a real obvious one for me, which is, if you are working here, you're working here because you want to be on the cutting edge of social and digital. You want to work for a disruptor, Gary. And so you're choosing to be here. When you choose to be here, first and foremost, we get turned on to new innovation very, very quickly because of Gary or because of our relationships with the platforms. That's the first part. And the second part, because you've chosen to be here, there is some kind of agreement that we've made with one another that you are going to trust us here. So I come back to the trust, right? Which means there's only so much I can worry about what's coming in from the outside because I don't have control of that. I don't know, for example, look, the country here, our country is divided right wing conservative,
Yeah.
and left wing moderate, much more what I would say understanding. We have that same divide here. We just don't talk about politics here. I mean, we don't talk about politics at mass. So there's certain things that I can control in this workspace, but I can't control anything that's happening out there. And so right there, and this is what Gary told me one day when I was having it was during the Hamas terrible moments in the Middle East, in Israel, and we had a lot of people very upset and very angry here with the way we were going about talking about it or not talking about it. And it was the first week, and it had been brutal because Gary was silent. They were coming to me. What are you going to do about it? Aren't you going to say something about it? What are you going to do about it? Da 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 da. And that Friday, he called me that night and he said, I want you to know that you've done the best you can. And I said to him, but the difference between me and you is that I always think I could be doing more. He's like, Claude, in this situation, you've done the best you can. And that right there gave me more oxygen than I really had needed, because I was feeling so terrible because I couldn't create safety for everyone. Right. And because we have Muslims and Jewish people here and Israelis and Middle Eastern people. And so when he said that, it really allowed me to take a deep breath and say, you know what, I'm not able to control everything. I cannot build the peace for everyone when it's outside of my jurisdiction, my domain.
It's so remarkable that, and again, going back to the kind of a question where a lot of our lives are spent with our colleagues, especially our working careers. I mean, that tends to be the case. And I think if there's a culture which kind of breeds this kind of a camaraderie, that you can be a Jewish person or feeling this way, you can be a Muslim person feeling this way, or you can be a Ukrainian person or a Russian person feeling that way, but at work somehow we're going to create this kind of a culture and atmosphere that you can come and again put the hand on you, it's okay, I'm there for you, you're
Yeah.
there for me. And I think
Yes.
that's the most remarkable thing, and I think the world is just really missing that in workplace. And to me, that is one of the most fascinating that I absolutely love about. And then, Vayner is still a company that you have to do accounts and invoices and
Yeah.
this and all of
It's
that.
not perfect. There's no
It's
use.
not
It's not
perfect. It's no
utopia.
company ever is, but the intent is always there. And I absolutely love
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yes. That's the word. The intent is always here. And that is something we say over and over and over to get into the water stream here. It's very, very rare that you would find someone who just doesn't want to help you, right? It's very, very rare here. Because if you're coming here, you know what is going on in this culture. So if you want it to be dog eat dog, then you're going to go someplace else.
I love that, which is which is what I say to my partner, that we live in London. Doggo eats doggo. We have a slightly different version.
Exactly. We're yeah,
Claude,
exactly.
I have my so recently I've realized that I think I was trying. I started to become a bit more selfish in the pods, and reason being in that I'm now started including this question of like an advice for me. But I really hope that there are other people like myself who gonna feel a bit more personal when you give that advice. So my penultimate question is to you: is that for me, who's running company, different companies, especially the Oxford Talks company that we have. We are kind of like a follow up to TED. I worked at TED, and it was a great time being there. Nothing against them whatsoever, but we want to have that kind of a culture where these events are happening all around the world, 100 cities, 150 cities.
Love it.
So, what advice would you give me that what can I do as the CEO and the chief heart officer myself? What
Exactly.
can I do to bring that culture to create another platform like that? I mean, TED, I mean, I absolutely love TED. I feel
Yeah.
like there's something going wrong with them, and we feel like we could do some better jobs than them. It's
Yeah.
just how at times and companies have been. What advice would you give us?
Well, the first thing is community is everything. And so whatever community you've built, whatever community and culture you've built, feel like make sure you have your finger on the pulse of it. You want to make sure that you know how people are feeling overall. So at a macro, and then you have a good idea how people and individuals might be feeling at a micro, whether or not it's you going out there and asking them or people giving you the information. I think that's the first thing that I would say is our responsibility, my responsibility, your responsibility is not to create the culture. I can't create this culture. I can cultivate it with others. And we need everyone else to be just as responsible for creating this culture as I am and you are. And so, how do you do that? You have to make them feel valued in this culture. You have to make them feel like they matter. Like, if you weren't here, I would really miss you. That's
Mm.
different than I really value you.
It reminds me of
Value, I value you and your skill sets, yes, but I would actually miss you. And these are things that as a CHO and as a CEO, just need to do more of. You just got to walk the floor, got to make sure that you are reaching people who probably don't even think you know who they are.
Claude. That reminds me of a very famous quote. I don't know from whom, but maybe it's a cultural saying. But the effect we have on the others is the most valuable commodity ever.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Yes.
uh, Claude, we have a tradition. Last question. We have a tradition on the pod that we ask the guests what has been the one most kind of a literary piece, can be movie, can be ideally a book that you would recommend someone read. And what we do is we actually go tend to buy that book, send it to someone who interacts with the episode. We send it to them and hopefully connect with them with the podcast guest. So, what would be that kind of a piece of literature that is very close to you, very dear to you, and you would love for someone to read and interact with you after that?
Um,
And it
it
is gonna
is,
be your book.
nope, it's going to be Unreasonable Hospitality.
Oh, love that. What is the biggest insight from it? This
Yeah.
one.
Well, this gentleman worked at some of the most famous restaurants in New York City. And his thesis is you give people more than they expect. You go overboard with your clientele. And so that's what I feel like we need to do more of in the workplace is go overboard, is really extend, not just say, "Hey team, how are you doing?" but actually say, "Hey Bob, hey Sarah, how are you doing? Hi Sue, how are you doing?" Spend time with people, understanding what is really going to light them up, right? So this is as easy as, he would know if someone was coming in to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary. Sure, you'd have champagne waiting for them, but you might have theater tickets also.
Yeah.
You might have something else that's very special. Maybe you have a chauffeur outside to drive them around the city. Whatever it is, just going one or two steps further with people. And so this is the book that I think is fantastic. I love
Love
it. I
that.
love it. I love it. And I could not say more about it. It's really being a lifelong learner, is what it really is, and paying attention to what your consumer or your employees or your clients are saying. Like, really understand.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all the wisdom and all the beautiful insights. I've really taken them inside, and thank you so much for sharing the book as well. Um, and yes, thank you so much for being on the Oxford Talks
Thank you.
pod. And hopefully, we get to meet in person when you come to London next time.
Yes. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.